The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
I won't lie, it's a pretty cool name for a movie, but is it good? That's the question. Let's talk about it. What is up, flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking the brand new Netflix film that is The Harder They Fall. I saw this cast. The idea is very interesting, but is this a fun Western on Netflix? We're going to talk about it. Let's do it. And outlaw Nat Love discovers that his enemy Rufus Buck is being released from prison. So he reunites with his gang to track down Rufus and seek revenge. Jonathan Majors plays Nat. Actors like Zazie Beetz, RJ Cyler, Edi Gathegi, and then on the other side of things, you have actors like Regina King, LaKeith Stanfield, Idris Elba, Delroy Lindo is in this movie, Damon Wayans Jr. is in this movie. Oh my goodness, this cast is ridiculous. But one thing I didn't know about this film going in was what would the tone be? Is this a film that takes itself a bit more serious and kind of works off of that, or is it going to be livened up a little bit, more fun? Even though the plot itself is a bit more on the serious side, how is the style of the movie? And honestly, the director that came to mind here, and it's not a Tarantino film, but it was a Quentin Tarantino, whether it be the camera angles, the cinematography in general, how some of these transitions would, go from one scene to the next, or just the sheer amount of action, violence, and blood that would come from each shootout. And that was super cool, to say the least. You also have to talk about the soundtrack, which just fits so perfectly. Stylistically, this movie has a lot going for it. Now, what does the plot, what does the story bring us? Well, it does bring us a familiar story, one that we've seen, many, many times before. This group of individuals teaming up, or in this case, teaming back up to take down this guy who is just causing chaos everywhere he goes. We also get a bit of backstory within that. The opening scene gives you an idea as to, first of all, the ideologies behind the characters, which is really good, but also the confrontation that leads to that hatred. And one thing that I love about this movie is the fact that it holds off on bringing those two head-to-head once again until way later in the movie. And instead of doing that, it allows us time to build up both sides of the equation here. As one, Idris Elba's group, they're kind of going on a rampage and taking over towns and, killing a lot of people. And I love how the film presents Idris Elba's character of Rufus. By the way, Rufus Buck, the ultimate Western villainous name. I think it's hilarious, but at the same time, really imposing. But every time Rufus is on screen, the camera is always panning up or doing a slow zoom into his face. And, at points, you'll hear him come in, but you won't necessarily see him at first, but you always know who it is. It's the imposing presence of Idris Elba. And it works really well in this film. It establishes him as this big-time villain, a villain who, in his mind, is doing the right thing. And I think that's really cool. I do feel like the film could have maybe hit on that even more so, given us more of his specific perspective as opposed to his group's perspective. Regina King probably gets more time than Idris Elba, which is okay. It's Regina King. Come on. But since he is like this imposing presence, I do wish he got a tiny bit more screen time, but still, every time he comes on screen, there's trouble, there's an imposing force. Okay, let's go to the other side of things. Jonathan Majors, there's a relationship between he and Zazie Beetz's character, and it's another thing that I believe they just kind of hit on, didn't go full in, but I like the fact that they didn't do that because I feel like that would have been more of a distraction from the main plot point itself, and that's really the confrontation between the two groups, and the movie continues to lead us into that. A great moment with Delroy Lindo's character kind of uniting forces to take down the greater evil, and the film uses that setup to bring us to the ultimate throwdown, smackdown between both groups at the end. And again, this is something that we've seen numerous times before in movies, but it's all about how you handle it. It's about how you go about it. And that's where I believe the real star of this movie, and an unexpected star in writer and director, Jeymes Samuel, whom I didn't know that much about going into this movie, but let me tell you, now I do. From the style to the showcase of what everybody's looking for going into this movie, it's the action and the violence. It's the blood splattering all over the place, the hardcore minutia that the movie gets into. That's a word. Big one. I said it. But seriously, when you present us a movie like this, you have to be detailed. The small things come into play, from firing a gun, and sometimes in movies like this, you have endless bullets. Characters don't have to reload. There are a couple of scenes that showcase the realism of that, the imposing threat of some of the characters. But then you have the more exaggerated moments and, the stylistic camera movements. There's one scene in particular, and I absolutely loved it. Every time a character fires a gun, one after another, the camera will zoom a bit further and zoom a bit further. And this was a very quick series of events, but it just brings so much more life to that moment as opposed to just a shaky close-up or even as opposed to a wide shot. And I love me a good wide shot, especially in a Western. A movie like Power of the Dog did a wonderful job of that. Watched that a couple weeks ago. But this film takes a bit of a different approach, an approach that isn't going to work for everyone if you're not on board for this style and kind of the tone that they're going for, but one that worked extremely well for me, and it brought me in to, again, a familiar story, but it made it that much more fun. So this is one of those cases where it's really all about the execution with this story. It could have easily played out in a cliche and conventional way, and there's some conventional elements and some things that I believe were just a tiny bit too much. I can't wait to see what you guys think down below, so let me know. Did you enjoy The Harder They Fall? If you like this Netflix review and you want to see more, drop that thumbs up down below. The Harder They Fall approaches a familiar story with such a distinct and entertaining style. Majors and Elba going head-to-head is what I never knew I needed in a Western. I'm going a solid 80% for this film. Again, it's such a fun movie on Netflix. I can't wait for you guys to let me know what you thought down below. And stay tuned. Plenty more things to come. I may be watching a little series called Cowboy Bebop right now, and I'll be bringing you that review very soon. Also, Narcos Mexico, brand new season coming out. So plenty of Netflix content, as well as big movies in theaters. Spencer, anyone? You guys looking forward to that? Okay, see you soon.